Who knew that something that seemed as simple and innocent as the Munich Agreement could lead to such a huge loss for the entire planet? Not France, not Great Britain, and certainly not Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. The Munich Agreement was a document signed by Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain, Adolf Hitler of Germany, Edouard Daladier of France, and Benito Mussolini of Italy. It was signed on September 29, 1938 in Munich, Germany. It clearly stated that Germany would gain possession of the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia, but in return they would not take and invade any other European land. Appease. To try to pacify or bribe by making compromises. Fascism. A system of government marked by aggression, racism, the rule of a dictator, and intolerance of other ideas. There were 8 major terms. However, they can be summarized as follows. The evacuation of the people in the Sudetenland region will begin on October 1st, 1938, and be finished by October 10th. B. The 4 regions of the Sudetenland will be occupied by German troops on different dates between the 1st and 10th of October. C. Within 4 weeks, Czechoslovakia will release from their army and police forces any Sudeten Germans who wish to be released. And D. Within the same 4 weeks, Czechoslovakia will release from their prisons any Sudeten Germans who are serving for political offenses. Neville Chamberlain, the son of Joseph Chamberlain, was born in 1869. After spending 7 years maintaining his father's plantation in the Bahamas, he returned to England in 1897. 18 years later, he was elected Lord Mayor of Birmingham. Chamberlain later replaced Stanley Baldwin as British Prime Minister. He believed that Germany hadn't been treated well in the First World War, and thought that if Britain agreed to Germany's demands, it could prevent another war. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in Austria to Clara and Alois Hitler. Hitler did very well in primary school, but not so well in his secondary school. Reacting to not being top of the class, he decided to stop trying. Hitler and his father's relationship was crumbling until Alois's death in 1903. After failing his examinations at age 15, he decided to leave school and teach himself. His self-education likely led to some of his narrow-minded beliefs. A little while after his mother's death in 1907, Hitler joined the German army. Many years later, Hitler and his Nazi party promised to rebuild Germany after the First World War, and they were accepted as Germany's ruling party. He is recognized by history as probably the most notorious figure of the 20th century. Edouard Daladier, born on June 18, 1884, in Carpentras, France, became the Prime Minister of France in 1993. He was a supporter of appeasement. After signing the Munich Agreement, he and Chamberlain told Edward Beans of Czechoslovakia, who was not part of the meeting, that they were not willing to go to war over the Sudetenland. Benito Mussolini, born 1883 in Forlì, Italy, was appointed Prime Minister of Italy in 1922. He had a strong alliance with Hitler, who had admired his doings for many years. Like Hitler, he was a fascist. He declared war on Britain and France on June 10, 1940. The First World War put Great Britain into a large depression. They basically took apart their entire military, with the exception of the Air Force. The people of Britain were experiencing poverty and starvation. They were sick of war and wanted peace. Germany was also experiencing a depression. It took a huge loss and was humiliated after the First World War, or as it was called, the War to End All Wars. Hitler and the Nazi Party came into the scene and promised to rebuild Germany and take it back to its past glory. In September of 1938, Chamberlain met with Hitler, who threatened to take over Czechoslovakia unless Britain supported Germany in taking over the Sudetenland. Chamberlain discussed this with Edward Benes, head of state of Czechoslovakia, and Edouard Daladier. They came to the conclusion that Hitler's terms were unacceptable. Hitler was put in a tough situation, but he knew that the United Kingdom and France did not want to go to war. The First World War almost put Britain in bankruptcy and tore apart their army. It was reduced from a superpower to nothing more than a weak country. Benito Mussolini suggested to Hitler that they have a four-way conference with France, Britain, Italy, and Germany, without the influence of the Soviet Union or Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain and Daladier, as Hitler thought, did not want to go to war or ally with the Soviet Union. As a result, they gave Germany possession of the Sudetenland, and in return, Hitler promised not to demand any more European land. The majority of Britain's people liked the agreement, as it seemed to prevent war with Germany. As you can tell, the Munich Agreement consisted of many different conflicts and compromises. The conflict was that Hitler wanted to invade and take over Europe, while Great Britain and France wanted nothing more than peace. The compromise was an agreement to preserve the peace. As in any compromise, both sides got part of what they wanted. Germany got the Sudetenland, Great Britain and France got the peace and had protection from Hitler's invasions. Or so they thought. You're probably wondering, did it all work out, and was peace preserved in Britain and Europe? The answer is no. In March of 1939, merely 6 months after the agreement was signed, the German army invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia. This clearly broke the Munich Agreement, and Chamberlain realized that Hitler could not be trusted. The appeasement policy was done with. By the end of the year, Hitler invaded Poland, and the world was at war once more. The Munich Agreement. It was one of the triggers that set off probably the most destructive, life-changing war in all of history, World War II. You can add that to our list of conflicts. The Munich Agreement shows that fear, especially in people with as much political power as Edouard Daladier and Neville Chamberlain, can lead to even larger problems down the road that weren't even thought worth worrying about originally.